I forgot what music played.
I love it. I love
so
the
cool.
intro.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome to season 2, long-awaited season 2, at least for us, of Beast and Booze. I was just saying to Ivan, I think it's been like almost a year since we recorded these last, so we are both super pumped to be jumping back into this series. If you're not familiar with it, there is a playlist. Please go check out the other episodes. It was a great time. Lots of cool stuff we learned. We taught each other, rather. And if you aren't familiar, it is a series where Ivan and I dive into different things involved with lore and monsters and cryptids and different things, and we essentially teach each other about them every episode. So this season kind of has like a subtitle, and that's going to be Viral Fables. So we're going to be jumping into kind of some of these stories that the internet has made kind of what they are, because there's some good ones. There's some wild stuff on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I have to give a new shout out. My friend did our logo for us. So our Beast and Booze logo. We have our merch link in the description if you're interested in getting a shirt, a sticker, a cup, whatever you'd like. Links in the description, as well as Ivan's links where you can find his content and his books. You will find all of that in the description as well. And ironically, tonight our booze of choice is the exact same thing, which is
This was not planned.
It was not planned. Right before I hit record, Ivan looked at it and I was like, wait just a damn second. And I was saying, like, the logo or whatever looks like a cryptid, so it's very fitting. The little
It
tree
really
monster.
does.
Anyway,
I'm gonna find a tree monster subject
yeah,
to talk about. I'm going to.
Yeah, there's got to be one. So we're going to kick off this season. I'm going to go first this week, and then Ivan will do his first one for this season next week. But I think anybody who's watching this that knows me knew this one was probably going to be on here because this is like an extreme like passion weirdness for me. So I'm going to be talking about the Slender Man. I've got it broken down basically into like origin and then the lore and then like, modern references like, or, pop culture things or media references. And then at the end, we'll trick Ivan into answering a few questions and see what he thinks he knows about the Slender Man that I did not talk about. We'll go from there.
I'm probably going to fail this.
It's going to be fine. So I got introduced to the Slender Man through the video game, the very first one, the 8 pages that came out like a decade ago, not quite a decade ago. And it was one of the I felt like it was such a scary game. I personally never played it. I wouldn't make it. Like, there's no way. The game is too high stress for me. But I watched people play it, and I was fascinated with this concept of this thing in the woods, and like you're running around and you're getting the pages, and the pages kind of give you hints on stuff, but nothing in depth. And if he finds you, you have to start all over. And he does this like static thing, and it's a really cool game. And it's had like tons of things added and spinoffs and fan-made games and stuff since then. But that was kind of my introduction to the Slender Man and who he was. So I did, most of this is not necessarily new information for me, but maybe will be for you and for viewers, because I knew a lot of this already. A couple of things I didn't, but so Slender Man originated in 2009, that long ago.
Don't even say that long ago. Make me feel so old.
I know, because I feel like it was last year. Like it's time is relevant.
Like, this all started after I graduated high school, so to say that long ago is.
Yeah, I was also not in high school when this came out. So.
I was out of college at that point, so that's great. Yep. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So he started out as a meme on the Something Awful forums. The character was created by a guy whose real name is Eric Knudsen, but I think online he was known as Victor Surge, during a contest You were supposed to use digital manipulation to alter photos and make them appear supernatural. And that's kind of obviously like what he did. He took pictures, he changed things to them and made them look supernatural. He uploaded 2 black and white images on June 10th of 2009. And the images included eerie captions that suggested that a larger story was at play. Typically, and one of them in particular has a note on it about involving children abductions and things of that nature. So, which is a big deal, because I think anything that deals with kids, I mean, it kind of sounds like those stories you tell kids before bed, where you're like, if you don't do this, then like Slender Man will get you. Like, that's kind of how it feels. So there were photographs of groups of children and then in the background of them playing is this very obscure, tall, weird looking figure in the back. Very tall, very thin, nothing on his face. He included short stories to go with the images, naming him the Slender Man. All of this stuff you can still find, because there is also extensions of this in creepypasta world, which I'm sure is no surprise to anyone. Because I originally thought that's what this started as. I didn't know it started that far back into something like this. I thought it was a creepypasta originally. But that's kind of where he started, where his origin story is, as it were. So one of the 2 photographs from the Sterling City Library fire, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished, is said to be because of Slender Man. So these are the stories he came up with. Cited the film defects team. So basically he put this story out there that like people went over these things, and that was like an official report that was made that this happened. There was a fire. These children were taken. There's this picture to prove that something was going on. Right around the time that this picture was taken, it was technically before the fire happened. So they're saying obviously that was what led to the fire, was Slender Man. The story is that the photograph was taken in as evidence, and so, which obviously if it was taken into evidence, how did he get it? But anyway, that's just one of the stories he made up, was that it was related. And I do believe the fire is real. The fire is a real thing that really happened, but obviously the Slender Man connection to it was something he made up related to the pictures he decided to use to alter the image to put on for this contest. So some abilities, there's a bunch. I think much like, kind of in the word Viral Fables, right? So when Slender Man started, he was one very, very specific thing. And then over time, he became a much bigger thing and was doing more things and had more abilities. So some of these were ones that he always had. And then over the years, people have just kind of, added to stuff and made it even crazier than it already was.
So Marvel Comics got a hold of him, is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like Marvel Comics went through this whole thing where they like zhuzhed up everybody's powers, and now everyone's unkillable, and it's really
Too much.
a conversation I've had with my friend about how ridiculous I think it is, because there's no stakes anymore. And that you said that about Slender Man, and I'm just like, oh, cool. So he did the same thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much that happens a lot with these kind of things, though, because the longer that something is out there, people add to it and they change it and stuff like that. But some of them were, so it's kind of a long list, but the main ones are: he can teleport, can show up wherever he wants. That's one of the original ones. Usually associated with like abandoned buildings and forest. You'll like in the game, he's teleporting throughout the forest. Or I forget what the other game was that came out after that one, where you go into like a factory building and he's like in one section of the building and then he's like in another. And so he has the ability to do that. There is this concept called the Slender Sickness, which creates rapid paranoia, nightmares, delusions, and nosebleeds. And that happens after you come in contact with him or have seen him.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. That's...
Paranoia, nightmares, delusions, nosebleeds. Obviously, he is tied to the abduction of children. Then kind of added to that in a more modern version of this. I say modern lightly because this wasn't that long ago. But there was the added thing that he did, and this is more of just an action, not necessarily an ability, but where he would put adults on spikes on trees.
Oh my god. See, I don't really know much about Slender Man. I didn't
No,
really.
you don't. Okay,
No, I
so this
don't.
is
I
going to
didn't do
be
a lot of studying up on him, and I didn't really pay attention to that.
time when he was like
So that,
popular.
yeah, I didn't pay attention to him that much, and I'm hearing all of this for the first time, and that's nuts.
Yeah. And I think the reasoning behind it is if you get in the way. So like there's multiple references to like this concept of hunting down before he doesn't just like show up and just grab you out of the blue. Like you've usually seen him a few times or know that he's there and he's kind of lingering in the background, right? And then so if the time comes when he's ready to take a child in this, for example, and there's a grown up in the way, they get put in a tree.
Good, my God. So he's got like a
And
little bit of a not a Vlad the Impaler kind of thing to him
I
per
thought
se,
the same thing. I was like, not everything does that.
but
Um, but there's a little added thing of he takes their organs.
because the tree wasn't enough. Or
I guess not. I don't
it's
know
where the
where
berries
that
don't
one
get
came
it.
from. I feel like that one so far out of the list I've gone through so far is one of the ones that fits the least in the base of the lore. But yeah, that's one of the things that's listed as one of his things. This one is one of the originals. He affects technology, so radios, phones, TVs, the static thing, the breakup, the lack of signal, things not working properly. A gremlin, if you will. He definitely affects technology, which I think is part of what plays into the game where when you're get too close, like that's all you hear is like the static sound. I think anything that affects technology is cool. Like I like the concept that these otherworldly things just like don't jive with our technology. Like I think that's a cool like a cool piece of lore to have pretty much for
It's
anything.
technology is such a huge crutch for us.
It
So to be able
is.
to separate us from that crutch is to separate us from the one like the common safety blanket that we all have.
You're right. Yeah, because if
Yeah,
you're in the middle of the woods, why would you do that? But if you're in the middle of the woods
right.
and you have your phone and you're relying on your phone to navigate, or if you need help and this thing comes along and you can't do that, that's like a very different feeling of helplessness. Because then you're like, oh no, like I'm lost. There's no way to get help. Like I'm completely and utterly alone in this. And so, yeah, I think anything that affects technology is really, really cool. I think the first example of that I ever heard really in horror really was Gremlins, probably them like messing with
Mhm.
stuff. Which gremlins are essentially cats because that's what cats do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll love me for this next one. Tends to target anyone who learns about him.
So we're all screwed, is what you're saying. So if you're watching this,
Check in the
or
comments so we know to look for you and see if
yeah,
you're okay in like a couple weeks.
yeah, if you're watching this, it was nice knowing you.
No. Whoops. No, it's only if you're deep diving. It's not if you just learn. So this is more of like an
But aren't
obsessive
we deep
level.
diving right now, though?
We're not at an obsessive level. We're not like,
No.
they're not too deep. We're not going to look for him. We're not like interviewing people.
Okay.
We're not doing
So
anything like
you
that.
went
But these are
shallow enough to keep us safe.
potentially.
I
I guess
hope
we'll
so.
find out. If we go missing
Okay.
after this,
Well,
then Slender Man is real and you should be careful.
this is all the proof you guys need.
That's it. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so like people when they get really obsessive about things like this, like people who draw on their walls and have like newspapers everywhere and like that sort of level of like when you're trying to find answers about him, that tends to be when he's like, he doesn't like that, so don't do that. Selective invisibility
Mhm. That's
to
a helpful
both,
power.
yeah, to both equipment. So like if you're recording something, and also just in general to adults, because again, his main focal point is usually children based off the lore. So if he doesn't want you to see him and you're not a child, you won't see him.
But if you are a child, then there's like no choice in the matter. Like he gets seen no matter what.
Yeah, I think it's kind of
Okay.
fading off of that like whole kids are sensitive. Like
Yeah.
children are they're more open to those things than adults are. Not
Hmm.
bitter yet. And
Yeah.
so they're more inclined to like see things and know things and believe in those things than we are. So I think it's just kind of playing on that notion of like children can see ghosts and other things that we can't see, and
Okay.
um the ability to shapeshift.
Because the
Um
invisibility is not enough, right?
no.
I
Yeah.
mean, because if I shapeshift and you're onto me, I'm just gonna go ahead and disappear.
Yep. So, good luck with that. The biggest reference to him shapeshifting is really just his height.
Mm.
He's, there's multiple, like even in different types of medias that you look up about him, he's like gigantic sometimes. Sometimes he's just tall, you know. And when you're comparing tall, the version of a tall thing like this to children, that's not necessarily freakishly tall to adults, you know.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's usually that he can make himself very big, which I think is pretty scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like he's kind of scary in general. Um, and then the last big thing regarding the shape shifting and the changing of the way he looks is this was added later. This wasn't a part of the original lore. He has tentacles that come out of his back, which I think a lot of people have probably seen the media of that, because I feel like there's a lot of art that has that depicts the tentacles. It's not in any of the games that I'm aware of. It doesn't come up in any of the other things that it's in as far as, the pop culture stuff. But um, I see drawings of it all the time of
I
him
think
just
I've
kind of
seen that.
standing there with like tentacles coming out of his back. Um, yeah, so that's most of his abilities, most of them, not
Most
all.
of so there's more.
There's always more
So
with
you
these
could do
things.
more than that. That's a lot. That's a lot to do.
It's a lot, and I'm curious because it's hard at this stage to determine what was the first stuff versus like some of the stuff you can tell when you read the stories that the guy did, but a lot of it like was added as people were just like, it would be really scary if you added this, and then it became canon because people wrote stories about it or they did art or whatever, right? Because stuff like the tentacles, the spikes, like putting people basically on big branches on trees, like that was never anything I had ever heard of until I was researching just to get some more notes for this episode. But the technology, the teleporting, invisibility, and the shape shifting, I those I think are pretty close to, the original concept of what Slender Man was supposed to do and be and all of those kind of things. So
It's a really fascinating thing when something becomes so ubiquitous and people love it so much that they want to add to it. And
yeah,
you can never trace back to who added what and when
no,
that thing was added. So it's because people just accept it as that's the part of the thing. Because I mean,
it's crazy.
who's going to say no to that? Who
Yeah.
you gonna prove someone wrong? Have you seen Slender Man? No.
Right, that's true. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because a lot of the cryptids and stuff we talked about in season one, they were very just stories kind of told over time. This is a very different concept in that regard
Mhm.
because this started out as a meme, as a
Right.
photograph with words on it. And it has like, it blew up. That like what, 2013, 2014 time frame, Slenderman was like at its peak for
Mhm.
like, it was like, it was everywhere, like
Yeah, for a
literally
long time.
everywhere. And it's because of the internet. It's because people saw these photographs and they built onto it, like you said, and they added and added and added and added, and it just became this like insane thing. It's crazy how the internet works with that kind of
It's
stuff.
the
It's
same effect though with what happens with cryptids over
yeah,
time, but it's just the time frame is just so much smaller. The window is so
smaller.
much smaller.
Yeah.
And and I our communication has advanced so much that we're able to do this, and
Yeah.
things tend to be so fleeting now,
Yeah.
because of this advancement in communication, that people get all of this evolution in a character in such a small amount of time before it goes away forever. you know so
Yeah.
it's kind of like you got to get it when the getting's good, and so it all
That's true.
happens at once now. It's insane.
Yeah. It's really crazy. So there is a lot of Slender Man stuff. I'm not going to list them all out. There's multiple games, there's multiple movies, tons of creepypastas, and a lot of them are really good. Highly recommend checking them out. There is also was viral. Don't know if it's still considered that now because it's been around for a long time, but there was a viral YouTube channel that did a series called Marble Hornets, where it's about this. I think you would really like it if you ever get an opportunity to watch it. It's really good. I really want to do a sum up of it and cover it on found footage because it's technically like analog mockumentary kind of whatever. It's about these film students who are filming this thing and they accidentally catch Slender Man. And over time, basically, like he shows up to their house while they're sleeping, and it's very, there are parts of it that I think are kind of hokey, but again, very low budget, just little content creators making some stuff. But the lore and the storyline and what they were able to do with that is really, really, really good. So I do recommend that to anybody who's interested in going down that rabbit hole. The videos are short, but there is a bunch of them. So, and that's Marble Hornets. You can find it on YouTube.
Okay. I'm gonna check that out and see people make the most regrettable mistake, the most regrettable accident they've ever made.
Oh my God, right. It's good. Like I feel like, I don't remember, I should have wrote this down. I don't remember when Marble Hornets as a series started, but it was around like before the YouTube boom. Like it was kind of early on in YouTube days. So to be able to do all of that, what they were able to do before, like the newer editors and the newer, you know what I mean? Like it's like they were really able to do quite a bit with not a lot at the time, I feel like. So it's really neat. And I really have a lot of respect and admiration for the show. It's really good. So definitely recommend to anybody watching who has not seen Marble Hornets. It's good. Now, perhaps the scariest thing that we're going to talk about for this is the example of Slender Man in real life.
Oh, I had a feeling we were going to get to this one story. Okay.
Yeah, my partner and I watched a documentary on this the day I messaged you and asked if you wanted to do these. I was like, this is really fun. I think we should do these. Like, and that's where it came from. Not fun. Like it's a horrible thing to happen, but it's insane. Okay. So in 2014, two 12-year-old girls stabbed their friend of the same age 19 times. 12 years old. Their names were Anissa Weir and Morgan Geyser. If you watch the documentary, you'll find that Morgan, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the one with the glasses, was the one that was really kind of more of the ringleader of the situation. But yeah, so they were very obsessed with Slender Man. And they both, more so Morgan, but eventually Anissa, basically came to this belief that Slender Man wanted them to do this. And so the little girl survived, which I did not know until I watched the documentary. I was so sure she died. She was in critical condition, and it took her a really long time to get back to any semblance of normal, if you can even get to normal after something like that as a 12-year-old. But she did survive. But they genuinely believe that this was something they had to do, or Slender Man was going to take them away. That they had to help him get this whatever, and they 100% blamed it on this. And this was right around Slender Man boom. This was 2014, so it was around the same time that all of that got really popular and was literally everywhere. And so they were obsessed with it. I had it backwards. Anissa. It wasn't my notes. Anissa was actually the one. Morgan was the other one. So Anissa's the one with the glasses. Anissa was kind of the main antagonist of the situation. And when they and if you watch the documentary, which I do recommend, it's crazy stuff. Especially if you like true crime stuff. It was just a really interesting thing to see these 12-year-old girls like in a room of it for interrogations, and they're like giving the story of like what happened. It's extremely upsetting, but it's very, I don't know, it's very crazy. So yeah, they stabbed her 19 times. Anissa received a 25 years to life sentence. Then Morgan received a 40-year to life sentence.
Wow.
And both were found guilty by mental disease or defect and were committed to mental health institutions.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That is like, I didn't know all the details of that story, but I had a feeling it
Yeah.
was going to come up in this conversation, and it is
Mhm.
just such a heavy story, especially as a parent. You know, I
Yeah, we have a 12 and an 11-year-old.
oh, okay, yeah,
It's crazy.
I have a 4 and a 7-year-old, and that's just, oh my god.
Yeah, it's always insane, and it's scary because like the internet stuff is even worse now than it was 10 years
Mhm.
ago. So like they're in there right now playing online with their friends, and they have access to just so much stuff, right? And the parents
Right.
that the parents of these girls, they didn't know anything about Slender Man. They didn't know that they were into that, fall like trying to learn more about it and thinking all these things were real. But it's an interesting thing because whenever, and I forget the name of the theory, we may have talked about this in season one. I can't quite remember, but there is a theory that says if you believe in something, if enough people believe in something, that it can create it in reality. I forget the name of the theory, but it's just this concept that like it's basically manifestation. Like if enough people are really believe in something, if enough people are truly scared of something, they can manifest it. And so that was kind of like when I first started learning about this real life situation, that was kind of where I went with it of like, I don't know that I necessarily believe in that per se. But they did. They believe that they spent so much time talking about him and looking into him that he became real for them, and they did this horrible thing as a result. Um, yeah, Anissa was granted early release after 7 years. So she's been out since 2021. And is under supervision until she is 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I just wonder where that disconnect came in between, reality and fiction. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
when for both of those kids,
Yeah.
for it to
Because
happen to both of those kids.
because when we're adults, we read things, our natural instinct is to question it, especially if it's not
Yeah,
something we already believe in. We're like, I don't know if that's real or not. You know what I mean? But
right,
like children, like my 6-year-old, when I'm watching something, he has to ask if something is real or not.
right.
Because he doesn't know where those limitations are. He doesn't know when to doubt things. He only knows to ask if he isn't sure.
Hmm.
And, the first time you watch Gremlins, it was like Gremlins aren't real. Like they don't exist. Like, and understanding that they do look like little animals. They could very well be real. I mean, there's a lot of really weird animals in existence, but it's understanding the difference because when you look up Slender Man stuff, a lot of people approached it like it was real. I mean, the photographs, the stories about it are connected to a true historical event, like, and that makes it a lot harder especially when you're that young. The line gets very blurred very easily between reality and fiction. And so this is an example of a viral fable going pretty bad. Um, so yeah, so that takes me into my questions. I only have a couple, nothing too hard, I don't think.
Well, we'll see how incredibly naive I've been to this whole thing.
I think you'll be okay. There's hints to most of them. I didn't make them too hard.
Okay.
All right. So, which of the following is an additional ability that Slender Man is said to have? Flight, mind control, or full on possession?
I'm I'm gonna say, given the subject we just talked about,
Yeah.
I'm going to, well, No, that would go under mind control because I was going to say full on possession.
Okay.
That he's a supernatural being,
Right.
and with all of the abilities already on him, I would say that possession wouldn't be so far off. So I'm going to go with possession.
Yeah. Okay. It's mind control. So you were.
Damn it.
But they're similar enough though, right? In a way. So, but yeah, so it's mind control. He's believed to be able to take over the mind of essentially a broken down. So like when you're talking about like slender sickness, for example, it's almost like demonic possession in a way. So I see how you got there because it's basically like the wearing down so that you can then control and take. So yeah, so it's mind control.
Which definitely it explains how easy it is for him to hunt children. Right,
because their minds are so malleable.
Right.
That's the SAT word. I think. What do the adults that Slender Man stalks have in common? Trauma, addiction, or they all have children? Don't go with the obvious here.
Don't go with the obvious.
Mm-hmm. I put that in there to trick you, and now I feel bad, so don't go with the obvious.
I wasn't going to go with the children one.
Okay, good.
I wasn't going to.
Yes, so trauma or addiction?
I'm going to say addiction.
It's trauma.
It's trauma. I am so bad at this. Oh my God.
It's all mental stuff, though. It's all related to mental.
Was I this bad in the first season? I can't remember if I was this bad at trivia.
I don't think either of us were good at the question portion. Especially when we got to the, what was the one? Was it the pig one?
The pig man?
Where you were asking me like all the, I'm like, really?
Yeah. I gave you questions about pigs, let alone the pig man.
That was hard. Yeah.
That was fun.
All right. So last question. Why is Slender Man said to take children? Okay. Is it easier than adults? He can prolong the buildup of fear. He can brainwash them to do his bidding. Or, I made this one easy. All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah. They're easier than adults. He can prolong the buildup of fear, which he feeds off of. And he can brainwash them to do his bidding.
So he's kind of like Pennywise.
That's an interesting connection.
Pennywise can do a lot of that stuff too.
You're right. Actually, there's a lot of similar. Why would you do that to me? There's a lot of similarities. Damn it, man. I have Pennywise on my thing.
There you go. Well, maybe Slender Man is a similar type of being as Pennywise, coming from the same dimension that Pennywise came from.
My opener is the same thing.
There you go. Get yourself a turtle.
Oh no, that's a different rabbit hole, man. I don't.
For those of you who have read the book, you guys would get that one.
Yeah. Good grief. So yeah, so that's our first not true deep dive, I think, but first lesson on season 2 of Beast and Booze, Viral Fables. I'm excited about this kind of subset of things we're doing there. Some interesting stuff this time around.
Yes. I am so looking forward to the next subjects that we've got coming up.
We've got some really good ones.
Yeah.
And some really just over the top examples of what happens when we have internet. Genuinely.
Oh yeah.
They're crazy. The stuff that we get into, as things go, this isn't even the craziest. This is pretty mild in comparison to some of the other stuff we're going to jump into. But okay, cool. Well, once again, everywhere to find Ivan is in the description for this episode. Please go check him out. Follow on Instagram. You're not on Twitter, but I do I still link your TikTok, YouTube, one of the two, both.
TikTok,
right?
I've got other plans for my YouTube, so don't go there yet.
Don't do that. Just do the TikTok and Instagram. So, and then next week when we're back, it'll be Ivan's turn to teach me about a viral fable. So that should be super fun. Yeah. So, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Super excited about season 2. We hope you are too. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you in the next one.